Hello, my name is Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I serve on the Supreme Court of the United States. Thank you for inviting me to speak to you today. I have been asked to help add to your philosophical history of the #MeToo movement. This is the movement that encourages women to speak up about their experiences with sexual harassment. I want you to be able to support your opinion with proof from history. Today, I want to introduce you to Hortensia. She is gone, but her words live on. Her acts are part of a chain of advocacy for women. She was a pretty smart lady who lived in Rome over 2,000 years ago and delivered a very important speech to the rulers of Rome, the triumvirate. She was a high-class lady who was well educated. Her father was a famous orator, so it is no surprise that his daughter learned to be a persuasive public speaker also. The status for women in Rome came from their father or husband, the same situation for most women around the world today, even in these United States. Hortensia lived during that time. The Roman Republic was in the process of breaking down. Rome had been on a roll, but the dog-eat-dog world of politics went crazy when Julius Caesar took over and was assassinated in the year 44 before the Common Era. 2 years later, 3 powerful men ruled Rome together. Now, this triumvirate of 3 decided to raise money for the war against the assassins of Julius Caesar by taxing property of 1,400 rich, noble women. Hortensia's peers were angry. Oh my gosh, they were mad. The noble women asked Hortensia to speak on their behalf. She had a great education and, like me, a strong personality. So Hortensia, accompanied by her peers, the noble women, went to speak to the triumvirate. They did not ask for a private meeting. They marched right into the public political arena, the Great Forum. Now, I want you to look at the ruins of the Roman Forum. You can see that it was a place of grand architecture for grand rulers to do grand things. Our own American civic architecture and form of government was inspired by much of what was Rome. This forum was a place of debate for men only, and where rulers made their decisions public. Women could watch and listen, but not talk. Hortensia gives a powerhouse of a speech in the Roman Forum, rebuking the men for proposing to tax women to support wars that they themselves had no part in starting or conducting. Hortensia, I tell you, fights against taxation without representation. You can imagine how angry those guys were, but they could hardly manhandle all the angry noble ladies who accompanied Hortensia into their men's-only political arena, the Forum. Well, Hortensia's speech worked. The triumvirate ended up reducing the number of women who had to pay that tax to the 400 richest ladies, and they also imposed a similar tax on men. You were all assigned to read her speech, and I assume that you read it carefully. Let's look now at a photo of Hortensia. Her speech helps us understand the culture and values of the Roman society in which she lived. Hortensia made her speech in the Roman Forum. In their biggest public space was a platform where men only were able to speak. It was called the rostrum. Romans were a tough and courageous people, but they felt it was important to weigh things carefully before acting. The art of well-educated people speaking persuasively and debating publicly was important in their society. Philosophy was important. Hortensia exemplifies the virtues of her society. She was courageous, marching into the male-only forum to address the leaders. She was an advocate for justice, using this value to convince the triumvirate that their decision lacked justice. And what I want you to know is Hortensia was prudent and encouraged the all-male leadership to be prudent, doing the right thing at the right time. Hortensia was successful because she exemplified Roman values of courage, justice, prudence. Her education and her training gave her the tools to express these values to the leaders of the Roman Republic. I want your education and training to give you the tools to express the values that are important to you as you shape your own world. Now, let's focus on Hortensia's principles, which helps us understand our own cultural values. Hortensia announces that the women will never pay taxes for civil wars. Then she goes one step further. Hortensia declares that the women will not cooperate with the power elite against each other. She expresses the modern-day value of women backing each other up and sticking together. That is a value and a policy that is critical to the success of today's #MeToo movement. Doesn't Hortensia's story remind you of my career as an advocate for gender equality and women's rights? Women call me notorious. I think that Hortensia was notorious also. They made a documentary and a biopic about me. I'm very proud about that. But although they never made a film about Hortensia, who lived in the latter years of the Roman Republic, you should admire her as well. All of you who support the #MeToo movement and are fighting for gender equality are standing on the shoulders of giants. We would not be aware and active if women before us had not been brave and vocal. We have come very far. We have so very far to go. Hortensia's speech is so encouraging. Before I return to my chambers, I want you to remember that Hortensia is an important leader in the history of our movement. Hortensia gives us the philosophical proof that taxation without representation applies to women's rights as much as to civil rights, and she reminds us to support each other because we will never go forward unless we all go forward together.